Hello everybody, my name is Dylan Raymer and I'm going to be introducing you to servant leadership and what it entails in this presentation. So, what is servant leadership? Well, to give you an introduction, servant leadership is a leadership philosophy that was first popularized by Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s. Now, the version that we learned for this class came from James Sipe and Don Frick, who gave us the 7 pillars of servant leadership in their book. The main goal of this philosophy is that a leader's main goal should be to serve others first and not to use the powers that come with being a leader for their own personal gain. A servant leader should also prioritize the needs of others on their team and do their best to help others perform at their best. To do this, a servant leader usually tries to lead by example, with humility, empathy, and stewardship. Now, what we learned about in this class is that a servant leader should try their best to follow the 7 pillars of servant leadership. The 7 pillars are as followed. A servant leader should 1. Be a person of character, 2. Put people first, 3. Be a skilled communicator, 4. A compassionate collaborator, 5. Have foresight, 6. Be a systems thinker, and 7. Be a moral authority. So let's dive into each of these pillars now. The first pillar of servant leadership is that a servant leader should be a person of character, as mentioned before. A person of character acts ethically with consistency, even if nobody is watching them. They lead with humility, meaning they admit to any mistakes made and share the credit when there is credit to share. And lastly, they live by strong values because remember, who you are inside shapes how you lead outside. The second pillar of servant leadership, to put people first, focuses on servant leaders prioritizing other people's success instead of their own personal ambitions. They know that people aren't a resource and that everybody has their own dreams, needs, and potential within them. To let others achieve this, servant leaders must focus on empowering others and help people develop into their best self. A servant leader who puts people first should also practice empathy as well as offer patience and support to those around them. In the end, care for the people around you first, and the results will follow. The third pillar of servant leadership practice is being a skilled communicator. Now, this doesn't mean just speaking skillfully, but actually listening deeply as well. Not just to hear, but to understand. A skilled communicator will also express themselves clearly to help foster honesty and openness in the workplace. To do so, they create safe spaces for others to speak, further fostering honest communication. Now, the main idea behind being a skilled communicator is that communication isn't about dominating, but it's about connecting instead. Now, the fourth pillar of servant leadership is to be a compassionate collaborator. To do so, servant leaders should see teamwork as an essential part of business. They should seek input from all voices and respect any contribution, whether big or small, loud or quiet. A compassionate collaborator also encourages diversity and the different perspectives each team member may bring to the table. Lastly, they should approach conflict with a calm and fair attitude, with the best case scenario always being a win-win outcome. This is my favorite pillar because it's true that true leadership happens when people work with you and not for you. The fifth pillar of servant leadership is the ability of foresight. Being able to think ahead and anticipate the possible effects of a decision is an extremely beneficial skill for any servant leader. Those with foresight often learn from history, analyze the reality of things, and forecast the likely future. By doing so, servant leaders can learn to anticipate and prepare for problems instead of simply reacting to them as they happen. To learn the skill of foresight, intuition, wisdom, and careful observation are the key. It's good to remember that good leaders see further because they look deeper. Next up, a servant leader should be a systems thinker, which is the sixth pillar of servant leadership. A systems thinker understands how everything is connected and recognizes that not only are organizations and communities complex systems, but people are complex systems too. A servant leader would do well to remember that a change in one area may make an unexpected impact in another. So in the end, they should be able to strategically think about the long term because a servant leader solves problems at the root and not just at the surface. Now last but not least, the seventh pillar of servant leadership is to act with moral authority as a leader. To not rely on titles or power, but rather earn the influence in the workplace. A person who acts with moral authority has a great strength in their credibility, values, and trustworthiness by creating cultures where character is valued more than status. A servant leader who is trying to act with moral authority should influence through their example, not their enforcement. Now that I've taken you through the 7 pillars of servant leadership and given you some information about each one of them, what do you think? Do you think you would adopt a servant leadership style or no? Well, here's what I think. I think that a servant leadership style is a great way to allow those around you to grow and become the best versions of themselves in the workplace. It switches your perspective from a me approach to an us approach. Adopting this style of leadership will allow you to create a lasting impact and connection with those you lead because it's a leadership style that causes you to genuinely care for your team members. So with that, my answer is yes. I would indeed adopt a servant leadership style because it builds a more engaged, trusting, and better performing team than other types of leadership styles. To give you a practical way of how I would implement this style, let's just say I'm a restaurant manager at a local restaurant. First and foremost, as a manager, I'd lead with honesty and respect. To do this, I would own up to my mistakes and give credit to the staff when credit is due. To bring in the second pillar, I would like to have one-on-one sit-downs with members of the team from time to time. This will allow me to understand their needs and goals more, plus be able to advocate for them on their way to reaching these goals when needed. As a skilled communicator, I would focus on truly listening. I'd make sure that I understand where any team member is coming from so that I can create a space where everyone feels like they are heard and not just ignored. Involving the team in any decision making will also help me with others feeling ensured that we are working towards the same goals. To help with my foresight as a leader, I would like to carve out a time for team meetings where we can talk about not only the things we do today, but how things tie into the future and the larger mission we're all striving for in the workplace. Now, as a systems thinker, I'd like to understand the bigger picture, meaning the connections between others as well, not just surface level issues. Lastly, being a moral authority means that I'd strive for the type of influence that comes from putting my values into my role as a restaurant manager. I'd like to have fairness, respect, and service put above all else, especially my own personal gain. By adopting a servant leadership style, I'd help create a stronger, more trusting, and more motivated team. A team that's committed to each other and the goals we strive for, not just personal success. So, with that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope I was able to perhaps teach you something about the 7 pillars of servant leadership today. Thank you.